The Christmas tree lights twinkled mockingly through the frosted window as I stood in the snow, my grandmother's carefully wrapped gift still clutched in my trembling hands. Inside, I could hear laughter and the clink of champagne glasses, the sounds of a family celebration I was no longer welcome to attend. "You're not welcome here." My Aunt Margaret's words still rang in my ears. "How dare you show up after what you did?" What I did. I almost laughed at the irony. My crime? Standing up to my cousins when I discovered they were stealing from Grandma Eleanor's accounts. I'm Sarah Mitchell, and this was supposed to be my final Christmas with my grandmother. She was fighting terminal cancer, and all I wanted was to give her the gift I'd spent months preparing. A hand-bound book of all her cherished recipes, complete with photographs and the stories behind each one. Instead, I was standing in the bitter December cold, watching my breath form clouds in the air as wet snow soaked through my coat. "Just leave, Sarah," my mother had said, not quite meeting my highs. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Harder for whom? For my cousins, Peter and Diana, who had been systematically draining Grandma Eleanor's accounts. For Aunt Margaret, who turned a blind eye to their theft because they were her precious angels. Or for my mother, who chose peace over justice. I pulled my coat tighter and turned away from the warmth of the house. The gift would have to wait. Tomorrow was the reading of Grandma's will anyway. Surely I could find a moment to give it to her before then. But as I reached my car, the front door opened. Grandma Eleanor's nurse, Marie, hurried out. "Miss Sarah, wait." She pressed a note into my hand. "Your grandmother asked me to give you this. She saw everything from her window." My fingers trembled as I unfolded the paper, recognizing Grandma's elegant handwriting despite its recent shakiness. "My dearest Sarah, don't let their cruelty break your spirit. Sometimes the best gifts come wrapped in rejection. Meet me at Sterling and Burke's office tomorrow at 9 a.m. before the official reading. All my love, Grandma Eleanor." Sterling and Burke was Grandma's law firm, the one handling her will. Why did she want to meet me before the reading? I tucked the note into my pocket and drove home to my small apartment above the bookstore where I worked. The place wasn't much, but it was mine, bought with savings from years of working while taking night classes to earn my business degree. Unlike my cousins who lived off trust funds and family connections, I had chosen to make my own way. This had earned me the family's derision, especially when I turned down a cushy job at Uncle Robert's investment firm to pursue my dream of owning my own business. "You'll never amount to anything without family support," Aunt Margaret had sneered. But Grandma Eleanor was different. She encouraged my independence, supported my decisions. When I started investigating the discrepancies in her accounts, she was the one who gave me access to all her financial records. What I discovered was shocking. Over the past year, Peter and Diana had convinced Grandma to sign multiple checks for investment opportunities that didn't exist. They had manipulated her when her illness made her vulnerable, taking advantage of her trust and generosity. When I confronted them, they turned the family against me, claiming I was jealous of their success and trying to poison Grandma against them. Somehow, they convinced everyone that I was the problem, not their theft. Everyone except Grandma Eleanor. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about the note, about tomorrow's will reading. At 8:30 a.m., I arrived at Sterling and Burke's elegant offices in downtown Boston. The receptionist, clearly expecting me, led me straight to a conference room. Grandma Eleanor was already there, looking frailer than ever in her wheelchair, but her eyes sparkled with their usual mischief. "Sarah, my dear," she held out her arms for a hug. "I'm so sorry about last night. I saw everything from my window, but I was too weak to come down." I hugged her gently, breathing in her familiar lavender scent. "It's okay, Grandma. I brought your gift." I pulled out the recipe book, carefully wrapped in silver paper. She opened it with trembling fingers, and tears filled her eyes as she turned the pages. "Oh, Sarah, you remembered every single one. Even my mother's secret pie crust recipe." "Of course I did. You taught me all of them." She gripped my hand suddenly, her gaze intense. "You were the only one who ever cared about the stories behind the recipes. The only one who understood that wealth isn't just about money. It's about legacy, about understanding where you come from and what really matters." Before I could respond, the door opened and Mr. Sterling himself walked in. He was a distinguished man in his 60s, carrying a thick folder. "Ah, Miss Mitchell. Right on time." He sat down and opened the folder. Your grandmother asked me to show you something before the official reading. He slid a document across the table. As I read it, my heart started pounding. It was a detailed investigation report compiled by private investigators over the past 6 months. It documented every fraudulent transaction, every forged check, every manipulated investment my cousins had orchestrated. But how? I looked at Grandma in confusion. She smiled. Did you think you were the only one investigating? When you first raised your concerns, I hired investigators to verify everything. You were right, Sarah. About all of it. Mr. Sterling cleared his throat. There's more. He pulled out another document. This is your grandmother's most recent will, signed last week. She asked me to inform you of its contents before the official reading. I started reading, and the world seemed to tilt on its axis. Grandma Eleanor hadn't just documented my cousin's theft. She had rewritten her entire will. Her estate, valued at $78 million, including her business empire of hotels and restaurants, had been completely restructured. Keep reading, Grandma urged softly. My hands shook as I turned the page. There, in clear legal language, was the truth that would shatter my family's expectations. I, Eleanor Rose Mitchell, being of sound mind and body, do hereby bequeath my entire estate, including all business holdings, properties, and financial assets, to my granddaughter, Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell. I looked up, stunned. Grandma, this is everything. She nodded. Yes, because you were the only one who cared about more than just the money. The only one who proved worthy of carrying on my true legacy. The implications started sinking in. In less than an hour, my entire family would learn that their planned inheritance, the money they'd been counting on, the wealth they'd already started spending in their minds, was going to me. All of it. Mr. Sterling checked his watch. The others will be arriving soon. Are you ready, Miss Mitchell? I looked at Grandma Eleanor, who winked at me despite her obvious fatigue. Remember, she whispered, sometimes the best gifts really do come wrapped in rejection. I squared my shoulders and nodded. After all, they kicked me out of their Christmas party. Now it was time to show them exactly why that had been their biggest mistake. They'd arrived in waves, first Aunt Margaret and her children, then Uncle Robert and his wife, followed by my mother and a stream of cousins. Each walked into the conference room with the confident air of people who thought they already knew the outcome. Peter and Diana swept in last, designer clothes and expensive jewelry broadcasting their assumption of wealth. They barely glanced at me, probably assuming I was there out of some misguided hope for a small inheritance. Before we begin, Mr. Sterling announced, Mrs. Eleanor Mitchell has asked to address the family. My cousin's expressions of bored indifference vanished as Grandma Eleanor's wheelchair was brought to the head of the table. Despite her physical weakness, her voice rang clear and strong. I've watched all of you over the years, she began. Watched how you handled money, how you treated others, how you viewed my legacy. Her eyes swept the room. Most of you saw only dollar signs. But one person saw something more. Aunt Margaret leaned forward eagerly. Her children had always been the most attentive to Grandma, or so she thought. Sarah, Grandma continued, would you show them what you brought me this morning? With trembling hands, I placed the recipe book on the table. Grandma opened it, displaying the carefully preserved photographs and handwritten notes. While some of you were busy calculating your inheritance, her gaze lingered on Peter and Diana. Sarah was preserving our family's real treasures. The stories, the traditions, the lessons that money can't buy. That's sweet, Diana interrupted with a dismissive wave. But perhaps we should move on to the actual will. Grandma's smile turned razor sharp. Oh yes, let's do that. Mr. Sterling. The lawyer stood, adjusting his glasses. The last will and testament of Eleanor Rose Mitchell. I watched their faces as he read, watched the confident smirks fade into confusion, then disbelief, then fury as the truth emerged. The entire estate, every property, every business, every asset, was coming to me. This is impossible. Aunt Margaret shot to her feet. She's not qualified to run a business empire. My business degree and MBA suggests otherwise, I said quietly. She must have manipulated Mother while she was sick, Uncle Robert declared. We'll contest this. Grandma's voice cut through the chaos. The will has been verified by 3 independent psychiatric evaluations, and there's more. She nodded to Mr. Sterling, who distributed copies of the investigation report. What's this? Peter asked, his face paling as he read. Documentation of every penny you stole from me, Grandma replied calmly. Every forged check, every fake investment scheme. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? Diana lunged for the papers, but Mr. Sterling's assistants were faster, collecting them back. Copies have been sent to the relevant authorities, he informed them, along with Mrs. Mitchell's formal complaint. The room erupted. Aunt Margaret collapsed into tears, while Peter and Diana started shouting about family loyalty and false accusations. My mother sat silent, her face ashen. Through it all, Grandma Eleanor remained serene. Sarah was the only one who tried to stop the theft, the only one who put my well-being above her own financial gain. That's why she gets everything. You can't do this to us, Diana shrieked. We're your family. Yes, you are, Grandma agreed, which made your betrayal even worse. Security arrived to escort out my hysterical cousins and their mother. Uncle Robert stormed out, already on the phone with his lawyer. Soon, only my mother and I remained with Grandma. Eleanor, my mother's voice shook. Please reconsider. Sarah doesn't know how to handle this kind of responsibility. Actually, Mr. Sterling interjected. Miss Mitchell has been secretly apprenticing under Mrs. Mitchell for the past year, learning every aspect of the business empire. This was news even to me. I turned to Grandma in surprise. She smiled. All those times you visited, all those questions you asked about the businesses, you were learning without even realizing it. You have a natural instinct for it, Sarah. Just like I did at your age. My mother left quietly, pausing at the door. I hope you know what you're doing, she said, though I wasn't sure if she was talking to me or Grandma. The next few months were a whirlwind. True to their threats, my cousins contested the will. But the evidence of their theft made their claims of manipulation fall flat. They now faced criminal charges, their carefully crafted social media images of success crumbling as the truth emerged. Aunt Margaret tried everything from tearful pleas to legal threats, but Grandma stood firm. Uncle Robert attempted to orchestrate a hostile takeover of one of the hotel chains, only to find that Grandma had already restructured everything to protect against such moves. My mother maintained her distance, though I occasionally received texts asking if I was managing okay. I didn't respond. Her silence during years of family mistreatment had spoken volumes. Meanwhile, I dove into running the Mitchell empire, discovering that Grandma was right. I did have a knack for it. The hotels thrived under my management, and the restaurants gained new life as I implemented modern touches while preserving their historic charm. Grandma Eleanor lived for another 6 months, long enough to see me successfully take the reins, long enough to sit in her favorite restaurant, now renovated but still serving her recipes, and enjoy the fruits of her legacy. You know why I really chose you? She asked one evening as we shared her famous apple pie. Not just because you were honest or because you tried to protect me. Why then? Because you understand that true wealth isn't in bank accounts or property deeds. It's in the details, the secret ingredients in a family recipe, the story behind a building's architecture, the relationships built over generations. She squeezed my hand. The others wanted to spend my money. You want to continue my life's work. After she passed, I found another surprise, a journal she kept, documenting her own journey from a young woman with a single small restaurant to a business mogul. Its pages were filled with wisdom, insights, and most importantly, her unwavering faith in me. 5 years have passed since that snowy Christmas night when they kicked me out of the family party. The Mitchell empire has grown beyond even Grandma's ambitious vision. We've opened hotels in 3 new countries, and the restaurants have earned Michelin stars. Peter and Diana serve brief sentences for fraud and now work mundane jobs in other cities. Aunt Margaret occasionally sends cards suggesting family reconciliation, which I file away unopened. My mother recently reached out, saying she's ready to explain her side of things. I'm still deciding if I'm ready to listen. The recipe book that started it all sits in a place of honor in my office. Next to it stands a photograph taken on my last Christmas with Grandma Eleanor. Both of us in the kitchen of her favorite restaurant, flour on our cheeks, laughing as we baked her secret recipe cookies. Sometimes during quiet moments, I remember standing in the snow that Christmas night, feeling rejected and alone. I remember Grandma's note. Sometimes the best gifts come wrapped in rejection. She was right. Being kicked out of that party was the best gift they could have given me. It showed Grandma exactly who would protect her legacy and who would squander it. Every Christmas now, I host a different kind of family gathering. The hotel and restaurant staff, many of whom have worked for the Mitchell family for decades, come together to celebrate. We cook Grandma's recipes, share stories, and remember the woman who built an empire on the foundation of good food and genuine connections. The crystal Christmas tree that once twinkled mockingly through that frosted window now stands in the lobby of our flagship hotel. But instead of representing exclusion, it shines as a beacon of welcome, reminding me and everyone who enters that true family isn't always about blood. It's about who you choose to share your legacy with. And sometimes the people who reject you end up giving you the greatest gift of all: the freedom to become who you were always meant to be. As for that snowy Christmas night, I keep the memory close, not as a reminder of pain, but as proof that sometimes being shown the door is really life's way of opening a better one. Grandma Eleanor taught me that, and every day, as I walk through the empire she entrusted to me, I make sure her lessons about business, about family, about life, continue to shine as brightly as those Christmas lights once did, guiding the way forward for generations to come.